Hello everybody and welcome to the Alpha Cast Season 8 Episode 3. It's a wonderful time to be here and I'm really happy to be a part of all this. How are all of you doing? Hopefully you're doing very well. I'm just checking some strange levels on my end. Just making sure everything's working okay. Cool. So just my microphone's loud. That's fine. It's fine. It's normal. With that said, hey everybody, welcome back to the party that is this stream, this particular show. Yeah, we're going to keep things right as I said last week we were going to. Look, there's not a whole lot on the docket here today. There's not a whole lot of news. We know that Orcs have a new codex that's going to be widely available very soon. That's largely going to be all the news. And I'm by myself one more time, hosting me here. Which is all good, because I've got some plans from guests for guests coming up in the near future. But for today, it's going to be a nice and quick and dirty kind of show. I'd like to go ahead and thank people that have come in and thrown down their lists onto the pyre to see whether or not we can go ahead and take a look at them and all that stuff. I'd like to go ahead and also thank Argo Fox and Lo-Fi Hip Hop Girl for the music that we're going to be listening here to today. Because you want to know what's better than those two things? I don't know. You're going to have to tell me. So, for today, let's take a look at this docket, shall we? Take a look at things for July the 25th of 2021. Welcome, 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 everybody. I'm happy to see everybody here. I'm happy to be here. And what's the news? Look, there's not much news. Alpha League is churning along nicely. We're done week 2. A good chunk of people have played their games. I think Pants probably has the exact stats. But if I'm looking at my own stats correctly... we are currently looking at a decent number of things finished off. Now, not everybody's finished. Only 42% of the games have been played. So as a result, we still have half of the group left to go. It's crunch time for all of you folks that haven't played yet, so please get to it. We should be looking at that number being a 66, not a 42, if we're keeping on average track. It's important to keep in mind. That said, 42% is still pretty good. So for those of you that have finished all your games and done that, excellent. Congratulations. You can go ahead and rest easy knowing your place in the pot. For everybody else, including me, let's get to it, shall we? We got games to play this week. Let's make them happen. So, that's all for announcements. As far as I can tell, all the other streams are going swimmingly. We had our tutelage streams pop up. If you haven't checked out our tutelage streams, go for it. If you haven't seen the Alpha Cast, hey, guess what? I cast 2 games, Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesdays was a pretty good game. Bit of a page turner right there. Really strong game between 2 savage armies. And then the second game, the first game I think was, Knights versus... Ooh, having a hard time remembering. I believe it was Space Marines. It was Space Marines of some kind. They had Redemptor Dreadnoughts up everywhere.
The litany of deployment has been made, brother.
Space Wolves! Thank you, Rurik. It was Knights versus Wolves. And Thursday's game was the Death Watch versus the Necrons. What might be one of the funniest games I've ever cast. No disrespect meant, but oh my god. I think there were a number of times where my brain just straight up melted. It was a good time. It was a very good time. So go ahead and check those out over on our YouTube. TTS Warhammer 40K. It's the name of the channel. You should probably check it out because it's got all of our VODs. If you want to go ahead and see these things in relatively good condition and without any, bigger problems, that's the perfect place to do it. If you want to support us in other ways, hey, following the channel here works out. Speaking of which, hello, it is me, 124. Thank you for following. And Adam James Pugh also followed us 4 hours ago, so thank you, you as well. More importantly, hit that bell to make sure that you don't miss out on any further streams. So let's get on to the crux of this. What news? 40K has a new codex coming, and we see it coming, but not before we hear it coming with a great big bellowing. I always want to do that at least once. Look, the Orcs are coming to town, and boy howdy are there some fun stuff in that codex. Most importantly, a couple of them, there are some bigger rules changes. For instance, things like, here we go, lads! Being all like, just re-roll the whole roll now. You don't get to pick your dice. It's fine. Whatever. It happens. Ramshackle, especially on certain units, seems to be pulling up a particularly nasty head. And Beast Snaggers, particularly those bosses riding those Squigoths. Well, not Squigoths, but the Squigosaurs. Those look like they are going to be absolutely brutal. So keep an eye out for those. if you want a really good article breakdown of how all this works, there's actually an excellent breakdown over on Goonhammer talking about the Codex from a more competitive standpoint, and like just like a first impressions kind of look at it. I read it. I can't recommend it enough. Please do check them out. There's some really good people over there that do some really quality writing, and I have to say, they know mostly what they're talking about. The only people who don't know what they're talking about, I haven't talked to. So, you know, that says a lot, I think. Anyway, orcs are cool. There's some cool stuff coming, and they aren't as immediately like, oh my god, what are you doing? As Admech and Drukhari were at the time. And if we take a look at the real-life tournaments, oh my god, what are they doing? The top fives are rife with Admech right now, and as we're going to see, they're not exactly slouches in Alpha League either. So that's kind of the competitive news in the real world. In the TTS world, you know, things are still kind of trucking along. Alpha League's doing its thing. We got T5S2 that finished a while ago. I need to kind of get back on the buggy, as it were. The shock jump dragster, if we're gonna go ahead and have any particular choice in the matter, so that we can go real fast. But I need to pick up the pace and kind of clean up on the TTS tournament knowledge. But as it stands right now, things are going well. Chat says that apparently that was a quality wall.
Thank you, lads. I appreciate that greatly.
And Pants also mentions that he's not looking forward to facing 9 buggy lists, dude. I hear you. The fact that they can shoot better than I can and also charge me is kind of grotesque. So yeah, there's some really cool stuff going on with orcs. We'll have to see how it turns out. I really hope that basic boys are in competitive viability with their Beast Snagger friends, and that honestly, given a little bit of time, for instance, a December chapter approved at the very latest, Munitorum Field Manual is maybe a better way of explaining it. Hopefully, come the Munitorum Field Manual, they will at least give some points nerfs to some of the things that look particularly nasty right now for a lot of the armies. But yeah, there's definitely some undercosted goodness in orcs. So let's talk about the league. How's the league going? That was good UK football voice there.
Oh, thanks, mate. I've been trying my best to learn how to speak like the orcs. Largely because I like playing the ones from Age of Sigmar, but we're not here to talk about that.
We're here to talk about 40k. So, talking about 40k, we've got some stuff going on in the leagues and in Alpha League in particular. Let's go ahead and just start off with the basic analysis of things one more time. Look at the faction win-loss rate, because we took a look at the graphs last time. We went extensively over them, who's picking what, who's the most popular faction, that stuff. This week, it's definitely a story of Death Guard, Admech, and hilariously, not sisters, but White Scars. It seems as if we've managed to breed a pit of White Scars, the likes of which no one has ever seen. So let's take a look at this. Imperium's currently sitting at a decent number of games played, 63 of them, with a 49% win rate, which is like actually balanced. I know it doesn't say 50% plus, but like 49% is like really good. That said, the majority of the losses are coming, like the majority of that loss percentage, like in terms of like wins to losses, the ones that are doing the worst right now are, I mean, sadly, Grey Knights. I think the dude's in my pod too, so I can't wait to fade his list and take a look at it. But Adeptus Sororitas, I was not expecting this, but they're currently 1-8 out of 9 games played. That is rough. An 11% win rate is not what you're expecting to see out of a brand new codex, particularly one that is as powerful as the Sisters one is. I know it's not Admech, but good grief. The Adeptus Custodi is still managing to do pretty well. I know that the one in our pod, Tweet, is managing to wreck things with his, 12 bikes? 12 bikes, 12 Custodes of Shields, and 2 massive shield captains on bikes as well. Just bikes everywhere. Yeah, good times. But that said, like, Custodies are still like showing that they've got the teeth necessary to play. 60% win rate for them. And then the real winners here are the Adeptus Mechanicus. This is kind of insane. With 12 lists playing, they've got 15 wins out of their 21 games. That equates, if you're looking at the screen right now, if you're watching this live, to a 71% .43 win rate. That is nutter butters. That is extremely good. The only army that comes really close to that are like one Space Marine faction in particular, but there's also the Eldari. So we'll take a look at the Drukhari in a minute. The Pants. Not enough swearing for a UK football fan voice? Well, how do orcs swear is a good point. Yeah, if you can go ahead and give me the lexicon of orc swears, I'll make sure to stuff them in every once in a while the next time I do an orc voice. But I play cow, so it's not going to happen often. Yeah, so that's the Imperium. Look, according to Pants, interesting little note here. The only one of the Imperial Soup win was against AdMech. Interesting stuff. We'll need to see the other, what counts, 5 games out of those particular lists there to see how that works out. And I know that there have been some drops, so like the total number of games played might drop significantly as might slow down significantly as we come to the end, and then there's just like this group of people that need to be tallied up for their forfeits. But I digress. There's not really much else to talk about here. Imperial Knight's doing predictably badly, sadly. My heart goes out to you. I'm really curious to see why the Adeptus Sororitas are doing badly, though. Like, if we can get if somebody out there is listening to this and is playing the Adeptus Sororitas in Alpha League, please book a game. I want to see how this works out, because man, that is rough times right there. I'm still expecting that to change, but we will have to see. Moving on to the Space Marines, we got a almost 52% win rate at 51.96%. There's no soup. No soup for you. Blood Angels are doing fine for the lists. So 4 people playing have played a total of 5 games together. Yikes, not super high. But hey, 60% win rate's nothing to sneeze about, even if it's a tiny, largely statistically insignificant number of games. Dark Angels currently managing almost even at 4-3. Death Watch 3-2 and 1. They broke a tie here, and we saw one of their wins live on screen. We'll have to see how the rest of their games go. And I've heard it from a reliable source, aka Ark, the man who played on stream, I believe on Thursday, that he would like to go ahead and book another session. So if you want to go ahead and book your games with us to get them cast on Wednesdays and Thursdays, please speak to Aggressively Memeing on the Discord. Speaking of which, check out the Discord. So we got the Death Watch doing their thing, 58% win rate. It's like a little bit higher than you'd expect if it was statistically significant, but it's not. It's not enough games to really determine that. What's interesting here, out of all the bunches of games, because everybody's kind of either breaking even or a little bit behind or a little bit ahead, we got White Scars. 5 people playing have played a total of 9 games between them, which isn't a lot, but the people that have played games have managed to win 7 of the 9 games. That's a 77.78% win rate here, which is actually incredible considering. I know that White Scars are really good, but you don't hear about them as much anymore because of the sheer oppressiveness of the AdMech lists you hear about these days. So seeing White Scars kind of kick in there and just nudge themselves in seems like it's going to be really, like, it's actually really interesting. And I'm wondering how that's going to change later on. We see, like, for like the number 1 chapter I'm looking at here that I think is going to pop back up in the meta might be Salamanders, because of the orcs that might show up. And Salamanders are really nicely tuned to deal with orcs, thanks to their ignoring -1 AP. That means that those choppers are still doing really badly. Sorry, choppers! Get your chopper! And then fail to wound the Salamander because their armor saves are unaffected. We'll have to see how that turns out. Chaos. Chaos has one good thing going for it, and it's Death Guard. Out of 8 people playing, they've played 21 games. That there is pretty good. That means that they're actually on track. They've played the 2/3 of their games over the course of 2 weeks out of 3 of play. So they've been doing really well, and that's giving them currently a 70% win rate, 70.45 to be precise. We're sitting at a 15-6 win record with 1 tie in there. Death Guard are doing really well. Nobody else in Chaos is doing stellar. I mean, Chaos Soup is sitting there with 9 games played, almost a complete right down the middle, 5 wins, 4 losses. Demons Solo have got 1 player, and they've played 1 game, and it was a loss. All Chaos Space Marines, every single one of them, apparently is now just 1 stat. 1 person playing. All the Chaos Space Marines has won 0 games to their 3 losses, which is rough, and the 1 person playing Night Lords has gone 0-3 as well. So really, there's not a lot of brilliance here going on, save for those Death Guard. So if you're in one of those Death Guard pods and you haven't played your games against them yet, be careful. The Eldari are doing well, 59% overall win rate, but that is largely being carried by 2 things. 1, Eldari Soup and Harlequins are largely just kind of kicking in at 50% each, even, but we can imagine that Drukhari are bringing up the majority of the heavy lifting here, and yep, the stats show that. Total of 13 games played, 11 of them are wins, 84% win rate, almost 85. Like, it is the highest win rate out of everybody here. It is definitely the main reason why the Eldari faction is doing well. It's hard to see any other reason why, like, the other two factions of Eldari are doing okay. Like, Harlequins are just Drukhari, but worse, overall, for the vast majority of people. And then Eldari Soup probably just has Drukhari involved. And then when we look at the craft worlds, the poor guys, they're sitting there with 4 people playing those lists, 2 and 4 right now with a tie. Not super great. So we gotta ask ourselves, you know, okay, the Drukhari Codex is still very healthy. It's doing its job. Are the finals just going to be Admech and Drukhari? Every time that we've banked on, at least that the casting team has banked on somebody making it to the finals, it's largely because, oh, they are the boogeyman of the meta right now. And, like, you look at the live meta games and you see 5 Admech in the top 5 or whatever. And I'm looking at this, and, you know, you could probably predict either double Admech or Admech Drukhari as your finalists for all of Alpha League Season 8. But every time we've done that, it's been... I mean, that it doesn't happen. For instance, last season, we were betting on Warp Time Mortarion actually making it to the end. Instead, we had a double Imperial Guard mirror match. Like, it was so weird. So we'll have to see how this goes. Let's take a look. Let's see what's going on here. Anyone else playing Sisters is almost like anyone playing Tau besides Siegler. Oof. Oof. That's actually an interesting point, Marius. I do think that Sisters are easier to play than Tau in some respects because they have more power behind them. You can expect them to be more reliable. And I think there are lists out there that are, like, okay, but I think people are, like, experimenting with their secondaries and doing other stuff. Maybe some of the rules are just different. I don't know. I don't think it's supposed to be that difficult to play. Confusion. Pants adds that the Admech and the Death Guard have similar win-loss records. It's just because of the draw. Yeah. He mentions that as well. Rorik Theas asks, what is Soup? Soup is literally just mixed factions, as the chat went through. So, yeah, there you have it. Final predictions. Space Wolf Dreadnoughts versus Death Wolf Dreadnoughts. Oh, that would be sick. Jen Willem says, nah, it's going to be a Genestealer Cultist mirror. Well, let's take a look at that, shall we? Xenos. Look, I titled the episode, Who's Going to Help the Poor Aliens? Because, oh my god, no one here is doing above a 47% win rate. And that 47% is because Tyranids. Tau Empire, 4-9. I've contributed a loss to that myself against Custodes. It turns out that turning off your rerolls when you're playing against Tau is painful. That said, 30% win rate is about on par for what we're seeing in live tournaments from most people. Orcs, this is using the old codex, so for those of you listening in the future, what about Beast Snaggers? Where are the buggies? You know what? They didn't have those right now, okay? They're currently sitting at 1 and 2 out of the 3 people playing. So in a straight 33.3333%, repeating, of course, percent win rate. Then we're looking at the Necrons. They're not doing super hot right now. They're currently sitting at 8 people playing their lists. Total of 15 games, sorry. Of which 5 are wins, 9 are losses, and they have a draw. So they're currently sitting at 36%. Considering that this is a 9th edition codex. Wow. And then the Tyranids. Tyranids are currently have like, you know, a decent number of players. 7 people playing a pure Tyranids list. They've gone 8 and 9 so far, wins to losses, and they bring up the majority of the faction's win rate, 47% for them. So that's a bit spooky. Genestealer Cultists, 2 people playing Genestealer lists, as we mentioned last time as well, I believe. They have played half their games, and they've gone 1 and 3 so far. So that's rough. Like, Genestealer Cults, I know, are really tough to play. Not impossible, though. They've seen a little bit of success in some very unique niche circles, but as it stands right now, who's going to think of the poor aliens? Because I'm looking at, like, 80% win rates for Drukhari, and that's about it. That's the highest that total combined Xenos gets. Everybody else is 50% or less, which is kind of frightening. And then you look at Chaos, all they have is Death Guard. Nobody else has their 9th Ed Codex, to be fair. And then Space Marines are doing fine overall. They have a 70% win rate on one of their factions. Everybody's kind of doing okay. And then Imperium's doing stupidly well because Admech are a thing, and surprisingly, Sororitas are not. So that's kind of like your stats for this week. It's kind of their stats for this week. Chat, let's see. I was trying for something actually possible. The Pants states about his prediction between Space Wolf Dreads and Deathwatch Dreadnoughts. And you know what? That is possible. But I haven't seen the Space Wolf Dreadnought list yet in action. I know it's powerful. I do think that the Deathwatch one outguns it. So we'll have to see how that goes. Embergem does mention that orcs have buggies. This is true, but buggies get blown up because chickens and raiders exist a good chunk of the time. They're not that scary anymore. Let's see, we have some people cheering for Neds. We have some other stuff. Knights live on stream. Oh, yeah, but that was like 3 Dreadnoughts, and then it was mostly just the power of... For those of you that didn't watch Wednesday's game, there was one brilliant moment where Bladeguard charged a Knight Megara and nearly brought it down in one fight phase. That was impressive stuff. So yeah, that's kind of our stats for today. Look, that's it. That's all that's really worth going over. We've got lists and analysis and graphs, and like we could go over these graphs all day long, but like the graphs aren't going to change over the course of the season. This is it. Like, you know, we know what's in here. That said, like, yeah, hopefully we'll see how the win rates go. I expect that Adeptus Mechanicus will sit right where they're at. Sororitas, I mean, I got to hope that over the course of 9 people playing those lists, right, that the other 3, effectively the other 3/4 of their games are going to go differently. Like, an 11% win rate is weird. It is weird. So yeah, that's that, really. Like, there's not much else to say about those stats. So let's go ahead and take a look at some lists. I polled the chat, or at least I polled the Alpha channel for lists. And you know what? I've got one here, thanks to Jen Wilhelm. We're going to go ahead and take a look at Jen Wilhelm's list that he's managed to, you know, delightfully donate to us. Thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly. Let's take a look, shall we? So for today's list, it's called the Demon Dance Party, or aka Araman Commits Vehicular Manslaughter, which is kind of hilarious. I don't know how that one works out. We'll have to see. So, it starts off with Battalions Detachment, Demons, Chaos, okay, -4 CP, pretty normal, and this takes up about half the list. We got Triple Keeper of Secrets, one of which is exalted with Quicksilver Reflexes, another one which is exalted with Blessings of the Dark Prince, and one of them is exalted, but random, and has been given the Relic Silver Strike, another one's been given the Forbidden Gem, and the last one's been given the Warlord trait for Bewitching Aura. Let me see. I believe that Bewitching Aura is the one that makes you fight less. Forbidden Gem just turns off a character. Quicksilver Reflexes gives you a 4-up invuln save, or a -1 to wound, one of the two. Blessings of the Dark Prince does the other one. I don't remember exactly. Needless to say, this is pretty typical. Keeper of Secrets are very fast. They're able to advance and charge if they are in a pure Slaanesh detachment, which they are, as the troops for this detachment are, well, it's a lot of demonettes, approximately 60 of them, one of which is a 30-lady squad with an Instrument of Chaos, which allows them to hopefully come back. Look, that's pretty typical. It's a lot of bodies to sift through, and 3 very fast, very powerful melee combatants, which are pretty good for their points. Then we bring in the super heavy auxiliary detachment, of which we have Zaraknyel. I believe that this is our Slaaneshi exalted super Keeper of Secrets, if I have to remember what Zaraknyel does. Great, so 4 of them. This is getting out of hand. There are now 4 of them. Then we have a patrol detachment of 1,000 Suns. Now keep in mind, warp time and stuff now has to specifically stay within their little group. But this is definitely, like, effectively a monster mash list. 4 very tough, very fast, monsters being brought up in behind by Araman on a disc, who has access to Death Hex, Doombolt, Infernal Gaze, and Smite. Very reliable, very powerful Mortal Wound output, coupled with all the rest of the Mortal Wound output that this list could do. And then we have a Demon Prince of Tzeentch, Malefic Talons, Wings. They have Astral Blast as their main thing because they are Cult of Magic, so... I mean, yes, the Warlord trait is Devastating Sorcery. Why, yes, it is! Which means an extra Mortal Wound on everything that this Demon Prince does, psychic-wise. They also have Death Hex in case if Araman goes down, or vice versa, and Infernal Gateway. They are Magister. They have the Helm of the Third Eye for some CP regeneration, which they desperately need, seeing as they start the game with, let's see, -4, -8, -9. So they're at 3 CP to start off with, which is just teeny, tiny. Oh, and yeah, because you need some for patrol, we got some 10 cultists. Whoop-de-doo. It's a powerful list, and it's definitely a monster match list. I think that it comes across a couple of problems in today's metagame, maybe, but I like all the ideas going on. You've got this extremely fast, relatively durable, and altogether frustrating list of monsters right up here, right at the front. Just going around and being an absolute problem. The Demonettes are annoying to have to remove. Not hard, but annoying. And especially with their invuln save, they could definitely get some jammy rolls, as Mikey would put it, from Hellstorm Wargaming. That's where I hear that saying the most. But anyway, if they get some jammy rolls, then yeah, 5-up invuln saves can keep them alive a little bit longer. And it's 60 bodies. It's not a lot. It's not easy to chew through 60 bodies at the best of times. Although it's worth mentioning that right now the metagame is kind of trying to look gear towards it, just because of 20-man Vanguard bombs from AdMech. So I'm not sure how that's worked out for them so far for Jen Wilhelm, but we'll see. The Super Heavy Auxiliary Detachment for a 4th Keeper of Secrets is like fine, I guess. And the fact that they have Delightful Agonies allows them to kind of get some durability on their Demonettes, so that's pretty sick. 450 points though. I wonder, I haven't actually seen this person's stat line, so I'd be curious to see how it works out. And then we got armament and stuff. Look, this has been a time-honored and tested patrol. Just tons of mortal wound output. They sit in the back, they deal with the problems that the rest of the monsters can't deal with. They can help free people from being stuck in close combat, so that way you can charge again. There's some good stuff, long story short. And it offers a lot of flexibility as well, since stuff like Infernal Gateway and Smite from the one Demon Prince, and then you have access to Death Hex and Doom Bolt to slow people down. I like it a lot. There's some power here, for sure. For absolute sure. There's nothing really bad I want to say about that list at all. That said, again, let's talk about some problems that could pop up. Because of the fact that it's very focused on 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess 5 particularly large, scary things, the other things in the list don't hit particularly hard, particularly the cultists. But the Demonettes, the 60 bodies, they're effectively just Gene Stealers, right? That's a fair point. They're Gene Stealers. They do their job. They attack things. They can kind of rip and tear through some smaller units or lightly armored units, but that's about it. They're not very hard to kill. And if you have something like AdMech on the table, I'd imagine that their Ballistari can actually do some really nasty work and kill the Keepers of Secrets fairly quickly, actually, even with all their defenses. The Demonettes just go down to Vanguard. There's not much they can do about that. The Keeper's Secrets are very weak to Vanguard veterans as well, especially the I Wound You on a 4-up strat. At a certain point, you just don't have enough armor saves to be able to get rid of all this, to be able to survive all that stuff. And that's, like, I think that AdMech have a very good matchup into this because of that. Their ability to do some really powerful screens. Their bombers are just really good for that as well. But, like, AdMech's way too good anyway, right? Right. But that's still the metagame that we're playing in, and as far as long-term success goes with this list, that's one thing I'd be very worried about, is putting all your eggs into this Keeper of Secrets basket. I'd like to have a way to deal with some of those problems I just mentioned earlier through other means, you know. I don't know what those are. I'm not a Chaos player, but hopefully there are some, potentially. Getting out of hand quote? No, that's from that is from episode 1 of Star Wars chat, just so you know. Are you looking for more lists to review, or do you have the evening set? I'm looking for more lists to review. Imagine only reviewing 3 lists. Lamau. Glarg, if you would like to go ahead and review lists together, let me know. Oh, anyway. So, that's it. That's all the only list that has been given to me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go ahead and skip over back to here, and I'm going to pick lists at random. Let's try... You know what? Where's my D1? I don't have a D100. Oh, bully. Let's just pick some at random. So, for one, I like to go ahead and take a look at a Sentient Potato. I saw them playing the other night, and I'm actually kind of interested to see the difference in their Deathwatch list compared to others. Let's take a look. So, Sentient Potato as a Deathwatch Dreadnought list. Okay, never mind. There's not going to be much different here, but we'll have to see what the differences are. We'll take a look at it quickly and then move on. So, in this one, it's Deathwatch. It's a big surprise. We got a Lieutenant. The Lieutenant does have the Tome of the Ectoclates, so that's the Tome picker-upper in this one. We got the Primaris Captain, Dominus Aegis, big surprise. Rights of War this time for the OBSEC all over the place, and a Vigil Unmatched. I forget what that one does off the top of my head, but effectively, what the Primaris Captain is doing here is giving everybody else OBSEC, including those Dreadnoughts who desperately want it. The Primaris Tech Marine here is again a Master of the Forge, and is... It has the Vorkin Pattern Auspicator in order to give him the aura that's called the Omnicanopticon. Omnicanopticon. There we go. Omnicanopticon. That's the name of the aura. I don't know why it's different, but whatever. And they are apparently a brilliant strategist from the Dark Angels, so good for them, I guess. There's a squad of Incursors, 1, 2, 3 squads of Proteus kill teams, 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and 2 Contemptor Dreadnoughts with twin Volkite Culverins. There's nothing really different about this compared to the other ones. The things you have to really worry about right now, are if you're looking against this list and going, oh no, is that from this list, okay, the Vanguard Veteran is actually backed up by bikers, not by more Vanguard veterans. Very strange. He's got a lightning claw and a storm shield. The bikers themselves just run around with twin bolt guns, which does mean I think that they get access to special issue stuff. And because they were initially in an infantry squad, I think they get the infantry keyword as well because of being with the Vanguard veteran. Now that I think about it, so yeah, that's pretty nasty. A bunch of toughness 5 bodies with 2 to 3 wounds is that go really fast, can hit in close combat, and has access to special issue ammunition is no joke. It's a different take on things, though, to be sure, especially because once the one guy with the storm shield goes down, the rest of them will probably go down relatively quickly as well. Mind you, it's bikers with OBSEC. How bad could it possibly be? The Redemptor Dreadnoughts have Storm Bolters, Icarus Rocket Pods, and the Macroplasma Incinerator. That's pretty normal. And then we see the 2 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts. There's not so much here in this list brought to us by, a Sensei Potato. Like, there's not too much to this list. It's very different from the one that we saw on screen on Thursday. So if you're going up against Deathwatch today, like, this is a pretty prototypical thing. I think that the majority of the time you're looking at this HQ combination, these Proteus kill teams with access to either bikers or more Vanguard vets, and then you're definitely looking at least 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts with 2 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts with the Volkite Culverins. That's the thing. And that might change. I'll make that abundantly clear. Like, these are really good, but we'll have to see how they deal with orcs. Especially because there's so many of them. Let's move on to the next one. I'm going to go ahead and spin the wheel a little bit. We've got No One, who's definitely popped up into the chat at least once or twice. Let's go ahead and take a look at No One's list. This one is brought to you by the Tyranids. At long last, we get to see a Tyranids list on here. Whoa. A Vigilant match is just the second Warlord trait. Oh, okay, very good. It's not strange, Pants, to mix the Vanguard vets with bikes, but still, it's a thing for sure. And the random number generator says 67. Okay, you know what? Fine. Let's just check out row 67 then, because you said so. RNG says Jedi Killa. Very nice. He's playing orcs. He hasn't played any games yet. Let's take a look at Jedi Killa's list. So it's a Spear to Head detachment. It's got the Death Skulls. So back in, pre-New Codex land, Death Skulls was the only really good faction. Because being able to reroll a hit roll and a wound roll and a damage roll and get OBSEC and get a 6-up invuln save was just maybe a bit too much. We got Warboss on Warbike with To Kill a Claw, Might is Right, and they are the Warlord. Big surprise. There's a Weird Boy in there. Also a big surprise. Probably coming with the powers Warpath and, ideally would be coming with the spells Warpath and the Jump, but they haven't listed it, which means that they probably had to roll for them randomly for all their games. They might feel salty about that. Can't blame you. We got the Mega Knobs. Each of these guys has a pair of kill saws for all those extra attacks and stuff. Tank Busters with a bunch of bomb squigs doing their thing as well, or bringing up the elite slot. They also have OBSEC as well as the Mega Knobs because there's a Death Skulls detachment, so it's still really solid actually. And then we got 1 Battle Wagon, 1 Bone Breaker, and 3 different squads of individual mech gun. They are toting the Smasher gun, which again, old Codex rules of them. So you shoot them. You get the reroll to hit, you get the reroll to wound, you get the reroll to damage, and the reroll to wound is strange. I'm not sure if it's a typical reroll wound situation. Somebody in chat could probably tell me. But yeah, no, it's powerful. It really abuses the Death Skulls keyword, for sure, and their subculture. They also have a Burnabama, which has the access to the Flying Edbutt stratagem, and boy howdy am I glad to see that go. The Flying Edbutt stratagem, for those of you that don't know, allows a Burnabama to fly to the middle of your lines, explode itself and kill itself for free, and then just deal 3 mortal wounds to everything within range. It's gross, it's stupid, it's dumb, and I'm glad it's gone in the new Codex. So. Nope, you reviewed that one last week? What, this orc one? Absolutely not. Then, clan culture. We got a little patrol detachment of Goths. Gaskell Thrak is in here. We got 30 boys, and there's a Pain Boy. Like, the majority of the list is brought up by the stuff that goes into the front. So the Mega Knobs, we got the 30 boys that get jumped wherever they need to be. The mech guns kind of bring up the support. There's a Battle Wagon that's probably going to be holding our big friends, and the Bone Breaker that are going to be holding our friends in there. The Mega Knobs and the boys. Gazgul's going to just run around, do his thing where he needs to be. And the Burnabama just first turn blows itself up. Everything else is there to do some range support as best as it possibly can, sit on objectives. The War Boss and Warbike allows you to get up there really fast with a very powerful Assassinate Hero Hammer character. Yeah, we'll have to see how this works. I think it's a powerful list. I think it's got some issues. Very specifically, I think that 30 boys is great and all, but it comes with the downside that it's all 30 boys into one thing, and that's easy to focus down. And that means that if you can see any one of the boys, suddenly a lot of them are going to vanish, even with a pain boy, giving them the 6 that feel no pain. Ghazghkull Thraka is spooky, but at like 300 points and with the amount of terrain on the table and him not being infantry, it means that he has to take several turns to get places, and you can kind of avoid him. And most armies, especially now that Catan have existed for a while, most armies now have ways to deal with abilities like Ghazghkull's, where you can only deal 4 wounds per phase. I'm not going to say all. I play Tau. I'm very aware that not all armies can do mortal wounds in every phase, but there are several people that have plans for dealing with units like this, and Ghazghkull Thraka is, as a result, a bit squishier than he might look otherwise. I think that it's got some play, though, and I think that the tank busters could easily do some damage and wipe out several squads of chickens if they need to, given a turn or 2, if they're lucky. And the Mega Knobs themselves are also fairly durable as well. There's nothing really wrong about this list. It's beaten the Deathwatch Dreads list we just looked at, and Knights. Hey, sick. Marius specifically requests a review of this. Well, let's take... Is that Marius's list? Oh, not this one. The list that you've specifically requested, I see. Okay. I was very surprised about that for a second. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get this new list up and running, but to do that I need to make sure you guys can't see all my sensitive information. So give me a half second to just change up the camera. For those of you that aren't watching live, you're missing out. So, in this case, we got a Blood Angels list. This apparently has defeated a Deathwatch Dreads list that we just looked at, and Knights. So that's pretty sweet. We'll have to see how this works out. So, starting things off, we got a Battalion Detachment. 8 CP granted as a result of all this. There's going to be some spent CP, go figure. There's 2 for the relics. There's 2 extra relics in the list. I'm imagining there's a bunch of warlord traits. Let's get this party started. We got a Chapter Master right at the top. It's not Dante. It's just a regular Chapter Master. Astartes Chainsword, Jump Pack, Rights of War, Storm Shield, Teeth of Terra, Warlord. Okay. Effectively, it's your Blood Angels Teeth of Terra Super Chapter Master. Just runs in and slices whatever it is apart. They can do it with their own rerolls. They can give other rerolls to other people if they need to. It's just a really straight, like, it's your Smash Captain from back in the day, made manifest once more, now giving OBSEC to all of his friends. We get the Librarian. The Librarian's using the regular Librarian's Discipline, access to Veil of Time, Null Zone, and Psychic Fortress. All makes perfect sense. Those are probably the 3 most powerful spells you can get out of that discipline, and it's really, really good. Being a Chief Librarian, they probably have the Warlord trait for it? Somewhere? Or not? Strange. I imagine that that's something that should be there. Having a +1 to cast would be really, really good. But not this case. Okay, fine. It does give them an extra spell regardless, so that's fine as well. With the Jump Pack and the Armor Indomitus, it actually makes them relatively durable. Gives them a 5-up invuln save where they didn't really have one before. Or 4-up invuln save, I forget which, and then you can just bump it up to a 3-up invuln save for a turn if you absolutely have to. Librarian's a good time. I can see this being very useful. Sanguinary Priest coming in, being what the Sanguinary Priest is, which is to say a Master Apothecary with a Jump Pack that has stratagems to be able to just come in at any time, anywhere. It's pretty sick. Then we are moving on. We got Assault Intercessors 1 and 2. We have a normal Intercessor squad there to hold up the back. Assault Intercessors are cheap, cheerful, and extremely effective in Blood Angels, where their +1 to wound can do some serious work with their Strength 4 chainswords. Yeah, I like this a lot. Moving onwards, oh hey look, it's 2 Relic and Tempter Dreadnoughts between Volkite Culverins. I wonder if the unit's too good. It keeps popping up in every fucking list. Pardon my French. Then we got the Sanguinary Guard. Not exactly super fluffy, but there are 2 squads of the guys, one of which is a little bit bigger than the other ones, and also has swords and axes, respectively, for the smaller and bigger squads. It's a lot of Sanguinary Guards. These guys are very efficient. 1 squad of 6, 1 squad of 7. Yeah, these guys will hurt easily, especially when they're around the characters, in particular the Warlord, I think is the reason why you need to be careful. And then there's Vanguard Veterans. Hey, you got a Lightning Claw. Hey, you got a Storm Shield. Hey, your Blood Angels. Perfect. Heavy support. Eradicator squad sitting there with the multi-melta. And the heavy Melta rifle, so that same range 24, but it's a heavy Melta rifle this time, and it does +4 damage when it's in half range. It's really powerful if you can get that to work. And then there's the Whirlwind with the Castellan launcher. All told, the list is 1996 points, has 8 CP to start with, and I like it. I imagine that the play here is the majority of the time, where possible, the Whirlwind just hides in the back, it does what it needs to do. The Eradicator squad is, like, with the Melta rifles and the heavy Melta rifles, probably ought to start off the board for 2 CP. But at least one of them for sure starts off the board, so that way they can pop on later and just blast things and stay alive for at least a turn. The Sanguinary Guard are absolute monsters, and always have been. The only thing where they have a bit of a problem going into is -1 damage things, like Death Guard, but that's where you have things like your Lightning Claws doing a lot of work, or the Relic Contemptors, if you sit them in the back for a little while. The troops are just there to hold objectives, or be relatively efficient, because there is Rights of War, so we can give OBSEC to everything here, except for the Whirlwind, and that won't be a big problem. Yeah, like, the list does what the list says it's going to say to do on the tin. There are some definite bits of jank in here that I can expect. Between the ability to, like, turn off and your invulns on certain people and allow that assault doctrine to really kick in against certain armies, like demons, against Drukhari, against stuff like that. Like, that's going to really, really hurt. Being able to remove their power from pain and invuln save is nasty. For them, it certainly does not make them happy, and everything here moves super fast. Like, if it doesn't have a jump pack, then it's sitting in the back just protecting each other. If it has a jump pack, it's in your face as fast as possible, and you can't really overwatch it because the Whirlwind will just say no. The Whirlwind also doubles as a fun way to kind of remove very lightly armed pieces of OBSEC, but don't count on it doing actually very much. For 125 points, it does about, I don't know, 60 points worth of damage. Okay, so the +2 is on top of normal, so the okay, I see. So the heavy Melta rifles are very, very strong. And yeah, definitely want those either in reserves or someplace where they absolutely cannot get shot turn 1, because otherwise they will get targeted. They will be killed. They will get killed. Okay, and then there's a 2 and 2 Ultramarines list that I need to review. All right, okay, Kauai. Thank you very much for the list. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one very quickly. For those of you who are following along, I am reading chat right now to get lists. This should be good. This should be good. So take a look at this. It is apparently an Ultramarines list. It's got 2 and 2. Sure. Why not? Sounds like a plan. This one's brought to you by Kauai Spoons. So thank you, Kauai Spoons, for the list. Let's take a look at this. It seems to be not a soup, but it is using a Supreme Command attachment. So we can expect, like, we're gonna see. You guessed it, Roboted Gilliman down here. He is the Warlord. He has Nobility made manifest. Done. Okay, cool. So that was a good 380 points spent. Moving right along, let's go back up to the top. We got a battalion. To start things off, Ultramarines are good for a couple of different things, but they are excellently. They can run an excellent Dreadnought list, thanks to all the rerolls and their ability to focus fire, and they have excellent characters. And if you're going to go ahead and want to run Ultramarines, you're going to have to seriously look at the characters to be able to really bring them to their top bracket. If you're playing pure Ultramarines, if you are playing an Ultramarine successor, which I think is the typical competitive standard, yeah, then obviously that changes things, because you're using different faction traits. You get to keep the moving and counting as having remained stationary if you normal moved or advanced, and then you don't have access to the characters, right? So let's move along. This is a proper Ultramarines list. We got Chief Librarian Tigurius up here with Veil of Time, Null Zone, and Psychic Fortress, the triple threat of psychic stuff from the Librarian's Discipline, and it's on Chief Librarian Tigurius, who also gives -1s to be hit at the beginning of a turn. So pretty powerful stuff. We have a Primaris Tech Marine. They are a Master of the Forge. They have Rights of War. They have Seal of Oath to point at something and say, kill this thing, please. And yeah, that's that. Look, Seal of Oath, by the way, is one of the main reasons why you take Ultramarines these days. Seal of Oath is super good, for those of you that don't know. That character points at a unit at the beginning of the game, and then units within 6 inches of him, I think core units within 6 inches of that character, can reroll hits and reroll wounds, or one of those two against that particular unit. It is very strong for dealing with Morty. It is very good at dealing with one of the knights on a table if you're dealing with knights. It is good for saying that thing needs to die and having it actually happen. Moving along, we got troops. An Infiltrator squad with a Helix Gauntlet to keep them nice and durable. An Intercessor squad and another Intercessor squad, each having an Astartes Grenade Launcher added to it. Okay, makes perfect sense. I like the Helix Gauntlet add, by the way, on the Infiltrator squad. It is 10 points, but it's 10 points that makes them actually really difficult to remove, especially outside of line of sight. You can shoot that thing with a las cannon, and they can just shrug it if you're not careful. So, you know, be wary. And then a big surprise, we got 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts with Macro Plasma Incinerators with Icarus Rocket Pods on 2 of them. To be fair, not all 3 are the same, actually. Only 2 of them have the Stormbolter's Icarus Rocket Pod, Macro Plasma Incinerator, and Onslaught Gatling Cannon. One of the Redemptor Dreadnoughts has a heavy Onslaught Gatling Cannon and the Onslaught Gatling Cannon as well as the Icarus Rocket Pod. So going for more of that, you know, effectively saving points and going for just a lot of shots rather than a couple of really strong shots. Not sure how I feel about that. I would have made the points, but moving along. We've got the Relic Attempted Dreadnoughts with the Twin Volkite Culverins that you see at least 2 of in every single Space Marine list, and then you have a squad of Eradicators. The Eradicators are particularly strong here since if they advance or normal move, they count as just having been normal. So you could go with a Heavy Melta Rifle here and actually do, I mean, pretty well. I imagine the reason why they're going the Melta Rifle is that way they can get AP -5. I'm not sure how necessary that is. But yeah, no, it's pretty good. There is an Eradicator with a multi-melta in there, which is a heavy weapon, so that does allow them to actually get some extra shots in that way as well. And then, like I mentioned before, there's Robotic Guilliman. If the list is confusing to you, it should not be. Let's go ahead and explain what happens. For the most part, the Intercessors and the Infiltrators kind of play the objective game. The 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, the 2 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts castle up with the Chief Librarian, the Primaris Techmarine, and Robotic Guilliman himself. Robotic gives them reroll 1s and to hit and wound baseline. Librarian Tigerius gives them bonuses, including that 5-up invuln save that they really want on the Redemptors in particular. Veil of Time, so that we can get them to reroll charges and fight first. The Primaris Techmarines theirs is to repair them, you know, and it has Seal of Oath to get them to really hit the one thing that they need too hard, and has Rights of War, so that way all the Dreadnoughts have objectives secured. This castle literally just walks around. The Eradicators will pop out where they need to, or be put into reserves, since having Guilliman as your Warlord just gives you a bunch of CP. So this list actually starts off with 12. And, yep, that's a lot of CPs. You can easily put these guys into reserves without really thinking about it. You put everything into reserves that you don't necessarily want on the board turn 1. Safely, I might add. So yeah, I can see how that would play into the list for sure. The castle, 100%, that wants to start the game on the table. And yeah, I can see why this thing went 2 and 2. I think that there are a couple of things with this list that make it a little bit less than ideal. But I like it. I think that the main problem with it is that it's got a lot of eggs in one basket. Specifically, I'm looking at this Robotic Guilliman basket and thinking, oh no. The other thing that would be nice here, and I agree with Colin Sherman and John Lennon with the way that they built this version of the list, is that you want to go for a Successors chapter in order to be able to pick up Whirlwind of Rage alongside the reroll. The reroll 1 hit per unit. That combination allows you to do some really good shooting. That combination allows you to get some really good punching, particularly for the Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Having exploding 6s on the turn that they attack is grotesque. So yeah, there's definitely some stuff there to be really, really happy about. And being able to free up the 380 points from Robotic Guilliman allows you to get a lot more board coverage, which I think is super important. When you're relying on 15 OBSEC models to be the majority of your board control, and everything else is castled, you're gonna have some serious problems against lists that can outmaneuver you, and then just hold on to those things that your Dreadnoughts can't necessarily leaf blow. Rare, I know, but they don't necessarily always kill everything they look at. So, yeah, there you go. You don't go Successor if you're taking Rowboat. Yeah, absolutely, but that's what I'm saying. If you're going to go ahead and take this variant of Ultramarine's list, you know, I wouldn't necessarily include Rowboat in there. Like, that's kind of the way to make that as competitive as possible. That said, you want to include Rowboat? This is a pretty good way to do it. I'd be really tempted, very tempted, to try going for as many cheaper squads of Intercessors as possible. Like, I would need more board control myself. It is my main problem with this list. Because right now, if you have to start splitting your Redemptors off to hold on to objectives or something, Admech can pick it off, Drukhari can pick it off, Sisters can pick it off, Death Guard can pick it off. No matter what can pick off a lone Dreadnought. The way that these Dreadnoughts are scary is if they are together and alive that way. You have to get your opponent to come out to shoot them, rather than the other way around. And if somebody removes all the OBSEC, that's the way I'd attack the list. Remove these 15 bodies, and suddenly the castle has to split, or else they're going to have a very difficult time dealing with a list that's more mobile than them. That's the weakness I see here. White Scars took another win. They're now at 80%. Good grief. Right, makes the Dread his object as well. Right, so long as they're within 6 inches of our Tech Marine here, right? But as soon as they start splitting off to hold objectives that you need to hold because your OBSEC is dead, like, you don't want to keep a Dreadnought on a backfield objective that's close to your deployment zone. You don't want to keep you don't want to be the one having to say, "Oh, this Dreadnought has to be pinned to my home objective." If somebody has the ability to take off, say, the intercessors on your home objective, either through a deep strike charge or something like that, which is possible, because although the infiltrators are great at screening, the intercessors can, like, the rest of your army can only do so much screening and board control to stop that from happening, from getting angles on it. If they have a lot of indirect line of fire, like indirect, fire of some kind, take smart missiles, plague burst crawlers, or just the really fast chickens. Termite drills for Admech would be actually kind of scary, but I'm not sure if they actually pop up these days. Planes from Admech as well would actually have a really good time just being able to knock those guys off of objectives and pick them off before dying. Yeah, that is how you attack this list, and that's the #1 weakness. Believe it or not, the Dreadnoughts are only the second most important thing about the list. It's the Infiltrators and the 2 Intercessor squads that actually end up being more important, because without them, the rest of your castle has to start pinning themselves to different objectives, which makes them a bit easier to kill. So careful play could do, like, it's still a really good list, but just be careful of that if you're playing this list. I think that's the #1 thing, for me, anyway. Okay, so we've been talking for a while. We've analyzed several lists. Let's go ahead and take a look at one more list, because I want to have some fun here. RNGesus / my own eyeballs. Let's take a look at, let's see, what's a cool one here. We've got a Necrons list here. They've got 2 E's. What's an E? Oh, it's a loss. That's what it is. So they got 2 losses. We know about Timonius. We know about Toby. We saw his list earlier. So, you know what? We don't need to go over it. I'm actually tempted to see how other Tau lists look like, but I can only talk Tau for so long before people want to kill me. Here we go. Okay, Pontax. He's got Genestealer cults. I'm tempted to take a look at that one. Who's with me? Let's take a look at this. So Pontax has a Genestealer cults list. This is one of 2 in the entire League of Season 8. I'm tempted to see how this looks. So, before we get started, I'm not a GSC player, but I've played against a couple of GC players, so I sort of understand a bit of what's going on sometimes. Kawaii Spoon says, killing 8 melted attack bikes turn 1 was my biggest achievement with this list. Unsurprising. What did he beat? Good question. Let's take a look. Genestealer Cultist, let's scan down the list. It just says what factions are in there. So, no, that's... I'm not sure what he beat, sorry. Maybe Pants can tell me. But let's take a look at how he did it. So, this is our Genestealer cults. Let's take a look. So, they've gone for a custom creed for Seasoned Enforcers and Workers Arisen. I'm not sure what those do off the top of my head, but it's interesting that there's a custom creed in there. For our HQs, we got a Jackal Alphas to give that +1 to hit, and a Patriarch for the Fearless, some Psychic support, just being the Warlord, getting the stratagems to make other characters get their Warlord traits for relatively cheap. It's all good. I like it a lot. That makes perfect sense. Mass Hypnosis and Mind Control are powerful psychic abilities. In particular, Mass Hypnosis is scary because being able to just turn off Overwatch, make you fight last, or all the other things that Mass Hypnosis does, it's nasty, so be careful. For troops, we've got a bunch of Neophyte Hybrids, of which there are 2 mining lasers in each. So I'm imagining that out of these ones, one of these 2 cult creeds allows them to move and shoot with heavy weapons without the problem, without the -1 to hit. But yeah, that's a lot of mining lasers just hidden within a bunch of 80-point squads, which is super cheap for what they are. We have 2 squads of Achilles Ridge Runners, each with a heavy mining laser and a flare launcher. This is pretty standard. I like that they haven't gone for the full 3 squads, as it allows them to have other things in the list that don't get bad touched so easily. And then we have we have a Cult Scout Sentinel, which I'm assuming is there simply to get engage all fronts turn 1 without having to overcommit to it. In our battalion detachment, which is our next detachment here, this is going to cost them 3 CP to bring, because the Warlord is in the patrol. This was a... Oh, or is this also battalion? It's also battalion, never mind. So in the 2nd battalion, because they have 2 battalions, this is where the Brute Coven stratagem was used. We have a Magus and a Primus. The Magus is here with a familiar Last Gasp and Might from Beyond. Might from Beyond is pretty solid. Allows you to... it's a second spell that allows you to just get some extra strength, I think. The Primus is there. I'm not sure what the Reliquary Ascent Tendark does, but... like, the Primus is always good for getting those deep strikes, and deep strike charges off reliably. The +1s to hit are very nice on that turn, and, I mean, they look like a cool model, so why not? Alien Majesty, I can't help but remember what it does. Like, there's something about it. Is it a fight first? I remember seeing that a lot, like, 2 years ago. Those are move and shoot heavy and reroll heavy mining. Okay, Kawaii Spoons, thank you very much. And he beat Tau. Big surprise. Okay, Acolyte Hybrids. We've got a bunch of them. These guys come with heavy rock cutters. Big surprise there. Flat 2 damage, AP -4, strength ×2. Look, it hits really hard. I think that in a world where there's lots of Dreadnoughts, lots of bikes, some other stuff, maybe mixing up the weapons a little bit so that way they're not all heavy rock cutters is maybe a potential idea for the future. I'm not sure anymore. But, like, I like the idea of... the Snippy Snap one that allows you to just kill people if they're on low enough wounds. The drill, maybe not so much, but, you know, the extra more wounds could be fun. But the heavy rock cutter is definitely solid. No problems there. They also have a bajillion blasting charges to be able to pop up and just lob a bunch of grenades is my idea. Is what I'm thinking here. Acolyte Hybrids, we've got 2 squads of 10 with hand flamers and blasting charges. So they pop up really close to something and blow it up. There's a Clamavist to just DJ for the rest of the entire squad. We got a Nexos to get command points back. And we got a Goliath Rock Grinder in there with a heavy seismic cannon and a cache of demolition charges. Total of 1,994 points and some degree of CP. I think 3 CP to start off with, which is rough, I think, because these guys are very CP hungry. It's an interesting list. I don't know enough about GSC to be sure about exactly everything that's going on, but it seems to be hyper efficient here. The mining lasers are capable of doing quite a lot of damage, especially with all these neophyte hybrids running around with the ability to reroll them without penalties. For 80 points, it's a no-brainer. Like, that's really good. Until very recently, Necrons were paying 10 points less for an honestly easier to kill body with something akin to the same amount of damage output. Maybe even less. And then, yes, I am talking about the Locust Heavy Destroyer, which is now only 20 points less than the 10 bodies here that are OBSEC that have access to 2 mining lasers. Yes, the Necron one is more efficient, but it is only on 1 body, and if you want to start getting squads of them, then oh boy, you're in trouble. The Achilles Ridge Runners are seemingly still like the big thing here. All the heavy mining lasers and everything allow them to actually do some damage. And then the Acolytes are doing what the Acolytes do. I still think that this list is getting tabled by, like, turn 4, easily, by most lists. But what happens is that by the time that happens, you know, a good chunk of the opponent's forces have been destroyed by mining lasers, or at least weakened, degraded at the very least, and they have won quite a lot on primary, and should have some pretty good secondaries to work with as well. At the very least, engage all fronts and behind enemy lines are 2 very easy things to score for this list. At least 10 to 12 points, I imagine. Retrieve Octarius Data is another very simple one to be able to pull off here, as there are, all of these guys can just show up out of nowhere. The thing that it's weak to is Assassinate, because eventually the characters will die if your opponent kind of manages to play against this well. I imagine that gives up the no prisoners secondary pretty well, too, since the only things that aren't infantry in the list are these Achilles Ridge Runners, which is only a quarter of the list, and the Scout Sentinel, I suppose. But everything else here is just straight up points, and you need to start removing them, so, you know, it's pretty weak to that secondary, as well as Assassinate. it's a neat list. It does what GSC are kind of trying to do their best to do. Everybody's got either blasting charges or demo charges or something, so that way everybody's at least a little bit threatening. We've got rock cutters. We've got hand flamers. We've got Achilles Ridge Runners. We've got a bunch of mining lasers. I don't know how much else you need, but this is pretty solid. Knows what a clam and nexus are / do. Marius, that's because like those are characters. Like you should know what the characters do. If I don't know what your custom trait does, then that's maybe something a bit different. Or what your individual warlord traits maybe, don't do or whatever. But like overall list is pretty, cut and dry. We've been seeing this since 8th edition, more or less. It's just that there aren't, the more inefficient parts of the book. If you're going to play GSC anywhere near competitively these days, there are some efficient choices, and there are a lot of inefficient choices, and you really cannot pick those inefficient ones. I think that the only change to this list that ends up being like, oh, definitely, is souping in some Tyranids, like some actual Nids, some actual bugs, and then that kind of defeats the point of running pure GSC, so... I like the list for what it does. The Goliath Rock Brander is a vehicle that can transport some acolytes all over the place. You can have a bunch of them deep strike. You can have a bunch of them deep strike super close for no reason at all. You can have some good +1s to hit thanks to the Alphas running around, giving everybody bonuses to hit things that need to die. The Achilles Ridge Runners are big and annoying and come with a decent amount of firepower as well. And like the list works, but it's still GSC. If you're going up against this list, you can't really underestimate it. But like. It's a tough list to play with a faction that is decidedly not well suited to 9th edition because you can't really stand on objectives and expect to live. And it gives up a ton of secondary points. And you can't really help that because GSC rely on the two things that it is weak to. So I thought you said that the obvious choice is not to play GSC. It's not an obvious choice at all. It's not an obvious choice at all. And let's have a conversation about that. Just a brief one. There are some people that really like playing their faction. And yeah, you could just not play that faction. If you wanted to play something super competitive and jump ship every time that there's a new meta list, go ahead. We see in the stats for Alpha League a lot of the time that you end up with a situation and people will jump to Dark Angels, people jump to Admech, people jump to Drukhari, people jump to everything under the sun in order to be able to try to find a win. But what ends up happening is that people who are experienced with their factions tend to take top places. Even the end of Season 7 was just 2 Imperial Guard players that knew what they were doing, got, some luck in earlier matches, and, still, it's not easy for Imperial Guard to defeat Warp Time Morty with a bunch of speedy backup. The pants. A strange game. The only winning move is not to play. It's a literal war game, so yeah, why not? But, you could do the meta hopping, but at the end of the day, if you're comfortable with your faction, you will play better than if you are not, which is one of the reasons why I heavily recommend that people stick with a faction or two and try to do their best with that faction. And if you want to meta jump to try them out, sure, go for it. But if you're going to seriously practice, you need to either get reps in or be familiar with the stuff that you're using somehow, either through practice or through just longevity of your playing the faction. If you want some good examples of this, Lawrence Baker from Tabletop Tactics has been playing Drukhari since the dawn of time and does well, and Grey Knights as well. He's been playing Grey Knights forever, and as a result, he kind of, came up with the Paladin Bomb list that took the 8th edition competitive world pre-COVID by a certain amount of storm. People had to be ready for that 10 Paladin Bomb list because of him. He knew his faction. Scary, Rivden Martinez from the Scarredcast show over on YouTube knows Drukhari inside and out. Has been playing them for editions. Many, many, many editions for many, many years. And even before the Drukhari Codex was doing super well with them, with a arguably weak Codex. I don't know what to tell you. Time and again, familiarity is kind of what ends up being a deciding factor. One of the reasons why Nick Nadavati did badly at the LVO 2 years ago is because he went from his list that he was very confident in to swapping out to a completely different list at the last second, and then he just straight up lost. I forget whether he swapped to White Scars or from White Scars, but either way, he tried playing a list that he was not familiar with as other lists, and just he didn't win. So there you have it. Familiarity, it's important. Maybe we should have a longer episode about that. Maybe that's where I'm going to bring in my guest. These are ideas I'm writing down. Either way, look, that's it. We did the list analysis. We've been talking for about an hour now, and that's the end of our show. So go ahead and thank everybody for coming by and saying hi and, spending some time with me. I think that, really, when it comes down to it, that this is the best part of my Sunday. I really enjoy this. For those of you that really enjoyed what you just listened to, and, have no compunctions about spending more time watching the same kind of stuff, hey, have you checked out our YouTube channel? We have a YouTube channel. It's a good time. There's all the VODs there. I've heard it's a good time anyway. I've spent a lot of time on there. You can hear my voice there as well. It's doing all the VODs for AlphaCast and everything. And if you want to see all this stuff live, try following our Twitch channel, which, if you're listening to this live already, hit that follow button, hit the bell for notifications. You'll be able to get this content as it comes. So, give that a shot. There's also something to be said about wanting to support us. If you want to support us over here at TTS Warhammer 40k, there's options for that as well. We've got our Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/TTS Warhammer 40k, you will go ahead and find us there. If you have some spare scratch, then we can definitely use that to help create more stuff to be able to support potential servers for hosting these podcasts on all your favorite podcasting networks. We can have surprise support. We can do all kinds of stuff with that. So if you have the extra scratch, that's one way to do it. And finally, if you liked the sound of my voice, you can go ahead and find me on this channel some more. I cast games on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And if you're a part of Alpha League, get your games in, but also try scheduling them for Wednesdays and Thursdays AlphaCast slots. And you can have my beautiful voice casting your games, which I've been told is a fun time. Okay, I've got some eyewitness accounts. Ark told me so. Timonius told me so. I've got, some other people. I promise. It's not just me making stuff up. But yeah, you can get your games cast that way. And heck, that's not even the only show you can find on here. If you want to go ahead and check out Alpha League's TTS tutelage streams, those show up as well on at least Fridays. I think Mondays as well. You've got Grand Alf and a few other hosts running those streams where they teach people how to play either on TTS or Warhammer 40k in general, using smaller lists and a little bit more of a casual atmosphere. And that's all of our shows. But if you love me specifically, for some strange reason you're like, hey, I can't get enough of that Slowwolf guy, well, you can go ahead and check me over at twitch.tv/Slowwolf and over at my YouTube, which is called Slowwolf Game. I also have an Instagram. I post a lot of photos of miniatures there. As well as a dog I found the other day. It was really big and very cute. And my cat, who's not so big and is still very cute, even though he's a jerk. You can go ahead and find me there as Slowwolf Graham, Gram. And that's about it. And if you haven't hopped into the Discord, by the way, for TTS Warhammer 40k, you're missing out. Please do check out the Discord as well. So, thanks again. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you folks next time. In the dark future of the 41st millennium. But for now, take it easy, stay safe, wear a mask, get your goddamn vaccine, so help me. And we'll see you folks next time. Bye-bye! For those of you that need a reminder, the music was brought to you by Argo Fox on YouTube. This was using the gaming no copyright playlist. Just kind of randomly put on shuffle. And then during the stream itself, I used the Lo-Fi Hip Hop Girl, because who hasn't seen Lo-Fi Hip Hop Girl? I paint to that stuff, I sleep to that stuff, I read to that stuff, I cook to that stuff. Look, just check out both those channels if you haven't already, if you like the music on the stream today. And if you got some other suggestions in terms of topics that you'd like to cover or feedback, just let me know. I just realized that I should probably be asking for feedback on a more regular basis. Bye!